Hey guys, it's Noel Lopez from ECommerce Disruptors, and I'm happy to bring on our guest, Adam Brown from Sircle Media, who's actually the founder. And he's going to be speaking to us today about your social presence and how you can really build that out to help grow your brand.
Thanks for having me.
So, Adam, one thing that I feel one thing that I've seen and noticed is a lot of brands have their social media and they have their presence, but they aren't really optimizing it or using it in the best way. We know that they can connect with them, but really through this presence, what is it brands should be looking to accomplish? What should their goal be?
Yeah, so I think every brand's a little bit different, right? But the reality is it boils down to like a few things. We focus heavily on CPG, beverage, and spirits. So some of the stuff I'm going to say probably leans that way. But I think anyone listening to this can extrapolate it out for their business. And I'm really pragmatic, right? I work in social media. That's a very abstract, artsy, sort of new sort of frontier. But a pragmatic mindset is a really good one to have when it comes to navigating social. So I think you first have to just figure out, like, what do you want to have happen? Like, reverse engineer from that, right? So 6 months from now, what will you be high-fiving about from your social media efforts? So if it's, supporting retail velocity, then you should have a social plan that commensurate with that. If it's driving e-commerce sales, then you should have a plan that's commensurate with that. And I think most brands are sort of in the middle there, so they haven't even really thought about that. The truth is, most brands are a little bit of all these things. There's probably, I'm talking about products and B2C right now. So most of them are multi-channel. So they have Amazon e-commerce on their own domain, maybe even third-party e-commerce and retail, and they have to serve all those gods. And so they have to do a little bit of social that will support each one of those. Maybe they should force rank those. What's their most important channel? Or what do you want to grow the most in the next 3 to 6 months?
Right.
And then think about what are some steps that you can take that are commensurate with that. So for an e-commerce point of view, you have to jab a little bit, tell them about your product, tell them about why it matters, but then you have to right hook and send them back to your website. And I think a lot of people in the social space, especially brand directors, they are a little bit skittish about using social for sales. They think social should be more conversational. And so they're a little bit hesitant to actually go in for the ask. And what I say when it comes to an e-commerce strategy is going in for the ask doesn't have to be the sale. I think a conversion of that is just getting them through your domain, because that will start the marketing journal. So that could be long form content. That could be recipes. That could be ways to make cocktails. So I think social should be, the strategy of your social shouldn't be so artsy. It should be a little bit more science, and then you should add the art on top of it. I think brands have that reversed. Make sense?
Yeah, and so question, because I do agree with you. I think many brands are skittish about, I guess, openly marketing, so to speak, within their social media channels. And when they, they're nervous that might take away from the presence that they've created. So my question is, when you are creating these campaigns, are you driving straight to the PDP, for instance, or are you just driving to the homepage? What's the intention behind that campaign, or is it dependent on the campaign itself?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I could go on for hours about this, but making it succinct for you here. A lot of the times we're not in the driver's seat. So it's somebody on the client side, and if they have e-commerce ambitions, they are saying, listen, like we need to drive a sale, or we need to do something. And often they're telling us, we want to route this to our homepage, or we want to route this to our shop catalog. And I think this is the big crux, and maybe we'll talk about this a lot in this conversation. Most brands have not invested mentally and financially into what they need to do from an e-commerce point of view. So if we say you need to be driving specific landing pages, they hear that and they just see dollars, signs in the negative, meaning that's going to have a cost. I don't have a webmaster. I don't know how I would even do that. And so they don't do that. And so they have a lot of attrition. They have leakage because they're sending people through their homepage of maybe their subpar website, or they're just going to the shop page. And if they have a lot of SKUs, people are getting lost. Right. And so we don't really drive that. But to answer your question, if it was my baby and my brand, I would be using landing pages, because the beauty about social, and that's where I live, is I can be very specific down to gender, down to, you know, different parts of the country with a geographic footprint, very specific ingredients. And in the healthy CPG space, sometimes a product has like 97 benefits.
Exactly.
So it's healthy and it kind of benefits everybody, and they like that. I actually like it as, if it's a keto diet, I'd rather go to a keto diet interest group, send them directly to a keto landing page, and then converts them to a sale. I wish I could do that more. I just don't get to do that as often as I would like. But that is where I would drive them. That's the answer to that question.
And you bring up a good point around investing within social. I think several brands are hesitant or nervous about the amount of money that they are putting in, and just for building that presence. We know that they take that time, that effort. But in terms of investing, where do you think, or how do you think brands should invest in social media to kind of see the optimal result?
Yeah, so first and foremost, they need to have a social media manager, and somebody good. It doesn't have to be Sircle, like that is our core product, what we offer, but somebody, it could be us, another agency, Jennifer, John, doesn't matter, but somebody who knows social media. I think it's a salary. I think it's a full-time allocated salary. It's not a marketing expense. And that person is doing all the 100 different things that a social media manager needs to do. So I think first and foremost, that's a line item. And I think it's more salary on your P&L than it is marketing vendor expense. Then within that, more specific to what I think you're asking, financial like investment, they need to be spending on Facebook and Instagram ads, especially in a market like right now that it's so cheap. They need to be testers in the new. Like I posted something on LinkedIn today about Instagram story ads, and I spoke with a pretty savvy marketing director that doesn't do stories and didn't know you could do story ads. And my head exploded. Like, how is that possible? But so you need to allocate spend there. Then you need to look at what you're serving. So from an e-commerce standpoint, I have this sort of Mendoza line of $5,000 a month of marketing expense specifically for ads to drive through your website. And this is for people that want to drive top of funnel clicks, down funnel conversions. I have definitely spent a lot of time with brands spending less than that. And, I've seen some success, mostly around special offers with a good call to action, deep discount, whatever that might be. But like an evergreen, ongoing investment, it seems like that's the right number. Could it be $4,500? Does it need to be $7,000? I don't know, but that seems to be my line dollar-wise. But you have to remember, you're paying Mark Zuckerberg for Facebook and Instagram ads, let alone Google and other things that would serve into this. But then, like I said, most of my brands are also in retail. So you have to support retail. If you just signed into a Sprouts or a Wegmans or a Costco or whatever it is, you have to create awareness around being on those shelves. And so that's a separate budget. It's almost more like out-of-home advertising, which even at like bigger companies, they would have somebody who does that, who would be different than the e-commerce person. But the reality is they all grow through your social media manager. And so you have to have a budget allocated for at least those two. And then if you also have real Amazon ambitions, I think you need to have a third budget to support off-platform ads to send people to Amazon as well. So as I'm going through the answer, you see like the price tag starts adding up. And for small brands, that's like a really scary proposition, but I just think that's the reality.
Right. And especially with these smaller or these startup brands, for instance, you like you said, that number begins to escalate rather quickly. And there are those nerves a lot. I think, unfortunately, oftentimes the need for a social media manager, there's not someone specific for that role who has that expertise. Rather, it's, hey, do you mind managing the social media as well? And it becomes almost an afterthought.
Totally.
So for those brands, though, in terms that may not be ready to have 3 different budgets for that, would you say that you would want them to start potentially with Facebook and Instagram, see the results that they get there and slowly expand out?
Yeah, so I think if you're really starting small, like if you only have very minimal dollars, it's Facebook, Instagram, it's influencers. I look at all of those as media. Look, if you're early stage and small, then I would be proud of that, live in it, and that means a lot of blocking and tackling, a lot of hustle, using social platforms, but in a different way, DMing local influencers, being strategic. A nice little hack that we like is, in New York and LA, in New York where I'm based, in LA, everything's overpriced. Influencers are overpriced. Everything's overpriced, right? Even ads are overpriced to market to certain people there. So if you can target, the same kind of concept, like supporting retail velocity in Ohio, you're going to get somebody in Columbus, Ohio for pennies on the dollar compared to New York. You might even get them for free. And if you can support velocity at retail around local and get reorders to now regional buys, you can run that back. And now with the new order, the new purchase order that you got, maybe fund and run it back. I also just think that if you can't invest in Facebook and Instagram ads at all, then you have to go real old school, like 2008-9, and like the owner of the company, every time someone transacts on Shopify or whatever e-commerce platform, like a personal note, thank you so much for buying my product. Here is why I did it. Let me know how it is. And for every out of that first 100 orders, you get 10 like power fans to do the heavy lifting for you. I find a lot of founders that aren't willing to be scrappy like that, to make opportunity happen if they have no funds. But I think it's work, but it pays dividends. Absolutely.
One thing that we just see consistently is that UGC content, when someone posts about how much that's so impactful versus, a campaign that you might just be running around the product. Seeing people actively engage with your product, rave about it, you build those raving fans. And you really, it goes such a long way.
Totally. And one other little hack to that point is same theme, right? So like if you have a vegan breakfast bar and you're in Ohio, and I'm just fresh on this because I just spoke to a brand about this last week, finding local Facebook groups that are like Ohio based and they talk about vegan products that have like 40 members, and you have a gatekeeper, you have the person who's the owner of the group. Go to that person and say, I want to gift you product. I love what you do. I want to be a member. I want to gift you product. And I just want to know what you think. If it's terrible, I want the feedback. If it's great, I want to know. By doing that, they're not going to ask for money. These aren't true influencers. And if you believe in your baby, as you should if you own a business, then you're going to put it in front of somebody, and 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to like it enough that now they'll endorse you in the group. And then you just got that UGC power recommendation just by being scrappy and reaching out to a bunch of Facebook groups.
Really, it's just putting in the effort is a good way to grow quickly too, through that way.
Totally.
So speaking of hacks, what would you say are your top 3 tips for really building a strong social presence?
Yeah, so again, it's I gave a couple already, but I'll spit some fire on some more. But I think like it depends, like how do you look at strong? What determines strong, right? So if we're talking about right now, follower counts, vanity metrics, irrelevant, right? It's really just what do you want to have happen in the next 3 months? And then what are the efforts that you can put in? And like you just said, as far as putting in the work, I always say if you can't put in the financial cost, then you can win on opportunity costs, which means you can work till 2 a.m. every night and really grind it. So one hack is Facebook groups are easy. They've emerged. They're more important than Facebook fan pages, I would say. So putting in the time to get in there and make that community and get people that are interested in whatever you're providing. And the early stage brands are usually trying to solve something. So you can speak to it. Or if you're a spirit brand, like the ones we work with, go into Facebook groups about mixologists and cocktails and talk about why your bourbon is better than anyone else's bourbon and whatever it might be. So that's one. Second is reaching out to influencers and asking to work with them on their weak hand. And what I mean by weak hand is, we'll go to Instagram influencers and, they're $1,000 a pop, but we'll say, hey, I see you're dabbling in TikTok. Could I gift you some product and maybe pay you a little bit for TikTok, knowing that it's probably going to flop? So now they're proving out that they're now a TikTok influencer too. They want to work with brands that aren't really courting them there. So I find that you can get a steeply discounted price when you're working on an emerging platform, even for an established influencer. So I think that's another sneaky little hack that you can get into. And then third would be just grinding for awareness with other brands. So look at, go to Whole Foods, go to Sprouts, and again, I'm leaning towards CPG, but whatever you're in, go to the store, look at everything on the left, on the right, everything around your product, go to every one of their Instagram handles, DM them and say you want to work with them, and don't be too selective. I have brands that will not work with somebody who has less followers, will not work with somebody that isn't like an exact match. Will if they're a drink, they won't work with other drinks. Silly. I think you should work with every brand that you can, because it's a free, other than sending product to the winner, way to get exposure to a very targeted audience, because you're going after a like-minded set. So that would be 3 quick free tips that you could put in motion that I think would work.
Yeah, and I love the idea around working with other brands specifically because if it's anything like your product or your brand, you're gonna have a similar audience that may not yet know about you, and you can very quickly grow through that means. And again, who doesn't like those types of contests or sweepstakes? Who doesn't want to try and win something from one of their favorite brands and be introduced to another one entirely?
Totally.
So huge win there.
Yep.
On that point, though, are there any things that brands should be avoiding on social media or shouldn't be doing that, hey, this is a hard probably no. We know that you're getting in the space or are in the space, but let's make sure you do it right.
Yeah, so number one, and it happens a lot, is brands are ignoring community management. So it drives me bonkers. It's the whole point of social media. It's social. It's uncontrolled conversational messaging. That is what social networks and social media is. And I see brands that I pitch for business that are like, take a look. We're doing good work. I don't think we need you. What would you change? And some of them optically look good. They have a branding firm. They have a content team. Maybe they have someone internal. So it looks nice outgoing. But incoming, people are asking them questions and they're ignoring them because they probably don't have a social media manager. And so that, what we talked about before. And so no one is doing the blocking and tackling, responding to each little comment. And I think that's the biggest shift. Like, big no-no is ignoring that is so crazy because you're often missing real buying questions. And so not only are you not facilitating a sale, but you're also alienating a consumer who is now used to people responding. So if they reach out and you don't respond, it's like a double whammy, big no-no, huge mistake. Second, Instagram follower accounts are irrelevant. I'll debate with anyone on the planet that wants to talk about it, but they're irrelevant because you don't target them. First of all, you don't reach them. And most brands that want more awareness, they don't usually target the 100,000, 10,000 followers because they're looking for new.
Right.
So if you can get your head around that, you stop worrying about Instagram follower accounts, because even if it grew, it's not who you're trying to message to anyway. So I think that's important. And the last thing I would say is, looking at other brands. I always say, don't look at the other treadmills to the left and the right at how fast they're running or how far they ran. Just focus on your business. Keep narrowly focused on what you need to do. And I think then at the time that you get back from not worrying about what everyone else is doing and putting it into your business, usually by planting and then watering those seeds, things will grow.
So in regards to just the Instagram account and even kind of the treadmill where you comparing yourself to other brands, one thing that, and I would love to get your thought on this, is we associate that count with like some type of value, especially when it comes to, for instance, celebrities. You get that blue check, they're certified. For brands, would you say it's not so much the follower count like you mentioned, but really just the value of those followers?
Yeah, look, it's very important for a big influencer because they're trading on that. That's how they make money. So that's great. And we could have a separate conversation on like the value and all of that being BS, but great for them. But as far as the brand, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not an audience that you're reaching. And we have clients that have 200,000 followers on Instagram that they've aggregated over the last 7 years. And, they don't reach any of them. So they have 200,000 followers, but they get 200 likes. And then we look on the back end, we're not reaching anybody. And then if they had money, which they don't, but if they could increase their KPI is new awareness. So just think about it. New awareness is not going to be the people who are your followers. On top of which, there's plenty of people that just don't follow brands. So you could do good work. They just they don't even know. Like, I don't even know if my wife knows to like follow a brand. So, you know what I mean? So if a friend of hers, this is why influencers are important, and it doesn't need to be a big influencer. If a mom friend of my wife with 90 followers on a private account suggests a new healthy gluten-free baking mix, my wife's going to be interested, and she'll go and check them out and maybe go buy them, but she's not going to follow them on Instagram. Mm-hmm. So it's a silly metric. The only argument I've heard that is a somewhat relevant one is that the buyers at retail stores call you out and they're like, you only have 1,000 followers. And they're oftentimes, I'm stereotyping, but a little bit old school, and they're not as socially savvy. So they say it. And I definitely have had clients who have lost business because they didn't have enough Instagram followers. Yes. So that's a real pain point. We make an argument that you should do a paid social campaign, bring the metrics, and then show it to them, literally show them, this is how we underwrite the relationship. It's the same spirit of the question. But that's the only argument I think even that is even worth discussing. Everything else is silly. Right.
Because that number of followers is in a correlation to who's interested in your product. And I think I entirely agree. There's a common misconception that that's the case, when really and I think you put it very well, is what's that new reach? Who can you speak to and introduce your product to versus who's actually following? Because even thinking about it myself, I don't know if I follow any brands on social media, really. It's primarily, influencers or related to, things I'm interested in, music, what have you. And then a funny meme page or two. So
totally. Entertainment, escapism, but not necessarily a brand.
Yeah.
That's why I'm very hot on Facebook groups, because if you can harvest a Facebook group, we've taken some of our brands and maybe they have like 200, members of this Facebook group, but it is an intimate group. They've asked to join. And if you're really if all of a sudden I found out like I had celiac or I had Crohn's or whatever, I'd be like, oh my God, I don't know anything about this. So I could Google search and I could look, but if I found a good thing that was gluten-free, and I went in there and there were people talking about it, and the organic reach on that is super high. When people are posting in that group, I'm seeing that all the time. That's valuable. And that's kind of what maybe Instagram was 6 years ago. It added value to my life, but it no longer does, and it doesn't reach me anyway. So that's why I just think it's irrelevant.
So Facebook groups definitely, a top opportunity to not be ignored, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm hot on those. And I would say some of my brands, if they even listen to this, they'll be like, yeah, Adam won't stop talking about it, but we only have like 70 people in there. Like, ugh. Right. I'm like, yeah, but I think that's, I don't know the exact equation, but to me, that's 70 members is like 7,000 Instagram followers. I don't know. Like, I just think it's more valuable. So it takes a little while to get them into your camp, but I'm hot on it. And I think that's something people should be into.
And it comes back to just testing it. If you see the success there, obviously, there's a reason to continue doing it.
Totally.
So for us, Adam, first of all, wanted to thank you again for joining the podcast and being a guest. I know you guys are actually going to be launching a podcast shortly. And if you would love to, tell us a little bit about it so we can make sure that we have our viewers check it out.
I appreciate it. Yeah. So we are launching a podcast. We're supposed to launch in March, but pandemic hit us and set us back. We're recording our first episode this week. It's called Consumer Packaged. It's going to be a live interview format all around the CPG space. So founders and people that service that vertical as well. And if anyone is interested at all in, signing up for it and hearing about it, it's CPG, like consumer packaged goods, cpg.show. You can go there. There's a landing page up and sign up for it, and they could be the first to know when we do it. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to shout it out. Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely excited to tune in for the first episode. Thanks, man. All right, awesome. Well, thank you, Adam, again for your time on e-commerce disruptors. Again, thank you to everyone tuning in. Stay tuned for the next episode, and we'll catch you soon.